The ring was supposed to earn me one signature and end my father's probate file. Instead, the moment I placed it on the table, the coldest man in the room opened his scarred hand, and every person behind him stopped breathing. I kept my own hands inside thin archival gloves. "My name is Evelyn Mercer," I said. "I'm the inventory specialist assigned to Daniel Mercer's estate." This item was sealed among his electrical tools. The man across from me did not answer. Adrian Vale had already kept me waiting 12 minutes inside East Harbor Ferry Terminal's restored arbitration hall. A room built from polished walnut, brass clocks, and silence. I had expected an attorney, maybe an insurance representative. I had not expected 6 executives to leave without finishing their meeting because Adrian lifted one finger. No one argued. Chairs slid back. Folders closed. A woman in a pearl gray suit paused beside him, her expression composed but wounded. "My answer remains no," Adrian told her. She left without looking at me. The tall brass doors shut, and the room became even quieter. I pushed the evidence envelope across the table. "I only need you to authenticate ownership. If it belongs to you, sign the receipt. Then I can return it through the estate." Adrian's gaze stayed on the ring. It was heavy black and silver with a worn crest on its face. A deep groove cut across one side. Pale blue residue remained trapped inside the damage, too bright to be ordinary dirt. His right thumb pressed against the scar in his palm. "Where did your father get this?" "I don't know." His eyes moved to mine. Gray. Steady. Not angry. "That would have been easier." "You catalogued his property without asking?" "I catalogued it because he died." The words landed harder than I intended. Something tightened near Adrian's mouth, then disappeared. He reached toward the ring but stopped before touching it. That restraint unsettled me more than possession would have. "May I inspect it?" I slid a magnifying lens beside the envelope. "At the table. It remains estate property until ownership is documented." One of the men near the wall shifted his weight. Adrian did not look at him. She was clear. The man became still. That was the first moment I understood Adrian's power. He never raised his voice. He simply removed uncertainty from the room. He pulled on the spare gloves I offered and lifted the ring beneath the suspended light. The scar across his palm matched the groove's curve almost exactly. My throat tightened. "This was yours." "It was. You lost it." His fingers closed once around the ring, then opened again. 14 years ago. I reached for my clipboard. Routine kept people honest. Dates. Signatures. Chain of custody. My father had hated written records near the end of his life. He moved apartments without explaining why and paid cash whenever he could. I had built my career around documenting everything he avoided. Then I'll need identification and a statement describing the item. Adrian looked at the form as though no one had handed him paperwork in years. "You came here alone?" "That isn't relevant." "It may become relevant." I set down my pen. "That sounds like a warning." "It was information." "Information includes facts." For the first time, his attention shifted fully from the ring to me. I should have softened my tone. Most people did around powerful men. I had watched them do it since entering the terminal, lowering voices, adjusting posture, pretending obedience was courtesy. But my father had spent half his life afraid of unnamed consequences. I would not inherit that habit without asking questions. Adrian signed his name. The pen made a dry scratching sound across the paper. Then he turned the small evidence tin over and studied the inventory notation my father had written beneath it. Each. S4. Adrian's face changed, not dramatically. His shoulders went still. His breathing stopped for one beat. "What does that mean?" I asked. He looked toward the sealed brass doors before answering. "East Harbor. Service Corridor 4. I glanced through the tall windows at the abandoned passenger platforms beyond the hall. "So he worked here?" "He did." "Then why isn't that in his employment file?" Adrian placed the tin down with precise care. "Because Service Corridor 4 was removed from every official record after the night my father died. The signed receipt remained between us. My simple return had become evidence. And Adrian Vale had just given me a reason not to leave it with him." Adrian did not reach for the receipt again. He stood beside the long walnut table, studying the tiny notation on my father's evidence tin as though two faded letters had rewritten 14 years of certainty. The silence stretched just long enough for me to gather my folder. "I'm leaving," I said. "You can." That surprised me. No request to stay. No order. No security guards drifting closer. Just 2 words. I slid the signed receipt into my portfolio and carefully returned the ring to its padded evidence envelope. The zipper sounded louder than it should have inside the empty arbitration hall. "If you discover anything else about Service Corridor 4, Adrian said, "I'd like the opportunity to review it. I don't share probate materials without legal authority." I expected that answer. I looked up. "You did. You brought me something I lost 14 years ago." His expression remained unreadable. "If money were your objective, we wouldn't still be discussing paperwork." For the first time since I'd entered the building, I almost smiled. Paperwork matters. "So I've noticed." He walked toward a cabinet built into the wall and removed a slim business card. No embossed title. No company slogan. Only his name, a direct number, and the address of Vail Maritime Risk. He placed it on the table instead of handing it to me. "My legal office can request copies through the proper channels if they're entitled to them." "If they're entitled," I repeated. He nodded once. "I don't ask for exceptions I won't defend in writing." That changed something I hadn't expected. Not trust. Just my interpretation. Power usually skipped procedure because it could. Adrian seemed to prefer procedure when it protected legitimacy. I tucked the card into my folder without promising to use it. Outside the arbitration hall, the terminal felt larger than before. Restoration crews had polished the marble floors, but entire passenger platforms remained sealed behind iron gates. Brass departure boards displayed cities no ferry served anymore. History lingered here like dust no renovation could reach. As I crossed the lobby, my phone vibrated. "Claire." "My supervisor." "Evelyn, where are you?" "East Harbor." A pause. "The Vail appointment?" "Yes. I've had 3 calls this afternoon asking whether Daniel Mercer's estate includes maintenance records." I stopped walking. "Who called?" "They wouldn't identify themselves." "Did you release anything?" "Of course not." Another pause. "But someone already knew which estate file to ask about." Cold settled across the back of my neck. Only 3 people should have known today's appointment existed. Me, Claire, Adrian. "I'll be back within the hour," I said. "Don't. Stay where you are." That wasn't like Claire. "Why?" "Someone came into records 20 minutes ago asking to inspect Daniel's employment file. They left when we requested identification." My grip tightened around the portfolio. What did they look like? Professional. Expensive suits. They never raised their voices. The line went quiet for a heartbeat. "Evelyn." They seemed very confident they'd eventually get what they wanted. I ended the call outside the terminal entrance. The harbor wind carried the smell of salt and machine oil from the shipping lanes beyond the restored docks. Commuters crossed the plaza without noticing the knot growing in my stomach. Someone had begun searching before I returned from my appointment. Not after. Before. The timing mattered. A black sedan rolled to the curb several yards away. One man stepped out wearing a dark charcoal suit. He didn't approach. Instead, he held up a sealed document envelope. "Ms. Mercer." I stayed where I was. "Who are you?" "Michael Grant, counsel for Vail Maritime Risk." He remained beside the car instead of closing the distance. "Mr. Vail asked that I deliver this only if you had already left the building." "What's in it?" "A certified request for access." I frowned. "Access to what?" "Every official incident report connected to East Harbor Ferry Terminal from the week your father worked there." I stared at him. "He's requesting his own records?" "He's authorizing their release to you." That was the last thing I expected. I accepted the envelope without stepping closer to the car. Inside was a signed authorization permitting me, not his attorneys, to inspect the complete archived investigation. No conditions. No confidentiality agreement. Only one handwritten sentence beneath Adrian's signature. "If your father left a truthful record, I want the same chance to read it that you do." For the first time since Daniel's funeral, I made a decision based on curiosity instead of obligation. I turned away from my car. Instead of driving back to probate records, I walked toward the East Harbor Municipal Archives. If Adrian's official file contradicted my father's notes, one of them was wrong. They agreed. Then someone else had already started rewriting the past. The municipal archives closed at 5. I reached the security desk at 4:47 with Adrian's authorization in one hand and my probate credentials in the other. The clerk read the first page twice. Then she looked past me. "Ms. Mercer." I turned. Adrian stood beneath the terminal clock, coat folded over one arm. He had come without an entourage, but the lobby reacted anyway. 2 city employees stopped talking. A man carrying banker's boxes stepped aside before Adrian reached him. "I thought this request was for me," I said. "It is." "Then why are you here?" "Because the archive director refused it." The clerk's face tightened. "Mr. Vale," Adrian set his phone on the desk. "He has reconsidered." The desk phone rang. No one moved for a second. Then the clerk answered. "Yes, sir." Her eyes shifted toward Adrian. "Yes, I understand." She hung up and unlocked the interior gate. That was how his power worked. No argument. No visible pressure. A decision traveled through a system and doors changed their minds. I should have resented it. Instead I asked, "What did you offer him?" "Nothing." "What did you threaten?" "Also nothing." The gate clicked open. Adrian met my stare. "Vale Maritime funds the preservation contract for this building." I reminded him that restricting a lawful records request would become part of the contract review. That sounds like a threat with better grammar. It was accountability with a deadline. The clerk pretended not to hear us. Inside, the records room smelled like paper, floor wax, and overheated wiring. A technician rolled out 3 gray archive boxes and placed them beneath a document camera. Adrian reached for the first lid. I put my hand on it. "We need rules." His gaze dropped to my fingers, then returned to my face. "You're delaying access you requested. I'm protecting it. No pages leave the table. No private photographs. We scan together, and both receive identical copies." The technician looked alarmed, as if waiting for Adrian to correct me. He didn't. "Agreed," Adrian said. I removed my hand. The first box contained the official incident report, insurance photographs, and witness summaries from the night Adrian's father died. The roadside scene appeared exactly as the report described. Damaged vehicle, broken barrier, emergency lights reflecting off pavement. Nothing connected it to East Harbor. Then I opened Daniel's maintenance log. His handwriting leaned hard to the right, each entry compressed into narrow lines. 11:40 p.m. Unscheduled power interruption. 11:51 p.m. Service restored. I set the log beside the police timeline. The first emergency call had been recorded at 11:52, 1 minute after the terminal came back online. I said. Adrian's jaw tightened. That could be coincidence. It could. I turned another page instead of arguing. A black and white inspection photograph slipped from the back of Daniel's log. It showed the terminal's central concourse before restoration. Dusty tile. Sealed ticket windows. The large brass clock above the departure board. Its hands had stopped at 11:40. Adrian leaned closer, careful not to touch the photograph. "The outage stopped the clock," he said. "And the official timeline starts after it restarted." "It never restarted." I looked at him. He pointed toward the lobby beyond the glass wall. The same clock still hung there, frozen at 11:40. For 14 years, everyone entering East Harbor had walked beneath the missing 11 minutes. The visible problem was no longer a ring found in the wrong place. Someone had removed an entire location from the story. The technician cleared his throat. "There's something else." He turned the incident box toward us. A section divider labeled terminal access had been cut cleanly from the binding. Not misplaced. Removed. Adrian took out his phone. "Close the building," he said. The technician went pale. I stepped between Adrian and the door. "No. You close this place now. Whoever removed that section learns we found the gap." He studied me for one long beat. Then he changed the order. "Keep the building open. he said into the phone. Freeze every archive access log from the past 30 days. Quietly. Outside the room, locks remained open. Employees kept walking. Nothing appeared different. But Adrian had just placed the entire archive under invisible control. And I had redirected the decision. The technician searched the digital index. One name appeared beside a recent request for the missing section. Victor Hale. Adrian's uncle. Adrian did not touch the screen. Victor Hale's name sat beneath the access request in clean black type. Ordinary enough to belong on a parking permit. Your uncle? I asked. My mother's brother. You said he raised you. He did. The answer came without defense, but his right hand closed around nothing. I watched the scar disappear inside his fist. The technician shifted toward the door. Adrian noticed. You'll keep working, he told him. No one contacts Mr. Hale. No one alters the log. The technician nodded too quickly. Adrian picked up his coat. I'm taking you out through the public entrance. I can walk out alone. I know. That stopped me. He did not say it like permission. He said it like a fact he was forcing himself to respect. We crossed the lobby beneath the clock frozen at 11:40. Employees continued sorting boxes and answering phones, unaware that Adrian had quietly locked every digital record behind them. Near the entrance, an older man waited beside the brass directory. Silver hair. Navy suit. A warm expression arranged with practiced care. Adrian. Adrian's pace slowed. Victor Hale looked at me next. You must be Ms. Mercer. I had not given him my name. Adrian moved half a step, not in front of me but close enough to change the space. Why were you requesting archived terminal records? He asked. Victor's smile held. Because your legal office called mine after Daniel Mercer's daughter returned a family object. I wanted to spare you another scavenger hunt through grief. His eyes settled on my portfolio. Your father should have left the dead where he found them. The clock behind him gave a faint metal click, though its hands did not move. I felt the words before I understood them. My father found a ring, I said. Victor's expression changed by less than an inch. Of course. I never said he found anyone. Adrian turned his head toward him. For the first time, Victor looked older. Daniel worked maintenance, he said. Men in that position hear things. They invent connections. Then why remove the terminal access section? I asked. I removed nothing. Adrian's voice stayed low. Your name is on the request. My office requested it. That is not the same thing. He adjusted one cuff. Adrian, this woman has already pulled you into a municipal archive after one meeting. Whatever she wants, distance will make it clearer. I expected Adrian to look at me. He kept his attention on Victor. She refused money, he said. Victor's mouth flattened. And she stopped me from closing this building when doing so would have exposed the investigation. That was not protection disguised as ownership. It was testimony. He was placing my judgment on the same level as his in front of the man who had raised him. Victor glanced between us. Be careful what you call trust. Then he left. No threat. No raised voice. Still, 2 city employees stepped aside before he reached the doors. Outside, Adrian's car waited at the curb. There's an apartment near the federal courthouse, he said. Private elevator. Independent security. You can use it until we know why Victor's office searched the archive. No. His gaze held mine. I won't be moved somewhere you control because a man you trust may know my father. I don't trust him. Not anymore. The question landed. He looked back through the glass at Victor's retreating figure. I don't know. It was the first vulnerable thing he had given me. Not fear. Uncertainty. I opened my portfolio and removed the signed evidence agreement. I'll keep my own address, I said. But you will send me every threat assessment your people receive. Unedited. No decisions made for me. That could expose internal sources. Then redact names, not facts. He considered it. Agreed. I signed an amendment beneath our original terms. That was my choice. Not safety under his roof. Information under my control. Adrian signed after me. His phone vibrated before the ink dried. He read the message once, then handed me the screen. A vehicle access record from the night of his father's death, had been recovered from an off-site insurance backup. At 11:37 p.m., 3 minutes before the blackout, Victor Hale's car had entered East Harbor through Service Gate 4. His sworn statement placed him 8 miles away. Victor's entry record stayed on Adrian's phone between us. 3 minutes before the blackout. Service Gate 4. I read the timestamp again, then looked through the glass doors toward the curb where Victor's car had disappeared. What happens now? I asked. Adrian took back the phone. I verify the record, identify who preserved it, and restrict access to every related file. No, his attention sharpened. If you lock the evidence inside your system, Victor controls the argument before anyone outside your organization knows there is one. My system found the record. Your system also let his office remove part of the archive. The words struck cleanly. Adrian did not deny them. Behind us, the municipal staff continued working beneath the frozen clock. Paper carts rolled over tile. A printer released pages in measured bursts. Ordinary sounds surrounding evidence that had survived only because someone had failed to erase all of it. My phone rang. Claire's name appeared. I answered. Evelyn, don't come back to the office. Her voice had the careful flatness people used when they were afraid of being overheard. What happened? A complaint was filed with the probate director. They're saying you offered estate property to Adrian Vale outside authorized procedure. I have the signed receipt and chain of custody forms. I know. I gave them copies. Then why am I being told to stay away? Because the complaint includes photographs of you entering the terminal and meeting with him privately. I looked at Adrian. His expression did not change, but the air around him did. Claire continued. Your system access has been suspended pending review. Daniel's storage unit is sealed. A hard pressure settled behind my ribs. Who filed the complaint? It came through outside counsel. No individual name. Of course it had. Has anyone entered the storage unit? I checked before they removed my access. Someone used an executive credential 2 days ago. My fingers tightened around the phone. 2 days ago. Before I had shown Adrian the ring. Send me the access image. I'm not supposed to release anything. Claire, whoever filed this already knows more about my father's estate than I do. Silence. Then my phone chimed. A photograph arrived showing the electronic entry log. The credential number matched the executive series attached to Victor's office. I ended the call. Adrian read my face before I spoke. Your employment? Suspended. My father's storage is sealed, and Victor's office accessed it before I contacted you. That fact changed the shape of everything. The ring had not triggered the search. The search had already been happening. Adrian reached for his phone. I can have your access restored. By calling whom? The probate director. And what would he owe you afterward? His hand stopped. I would be correcting interference. You would be replacing Victor's pressure with yours. A muscle moved in his jaw. I opened the photograph Claire had sent and placed it beside the evidence agreement. My habit of documenting every object had annoyed half the attorneys I worked with. Now it was the only advantage I had left. I photographed Daniel's storage before the first inventory, I said. Every shelf, every container, every seal. Adrian understood immediately. You can prove whether anything was added or removed. If I'm allowed back in, you won't be. Not while the review is active. Then I need to make the review irrelevant. I called the City Preservation Office. Adrian watched without interrupting as I reported a potential historical evidence site connected to East Harbor Service Corridor 4. I submitted the stop clock photograph, Daniel's maintenance entry, the ring analysis, Victor's vehicle record, and the storage access image. Then I requested an emergency preservation hold. The woman on the line warned me that filing under my own name would make the request public. I looked at Adrian. He gave no signal. No instruction. The choice remained mine. File it, I said. When the confirmation arrived, something inside me went quiet. I had crossed from probate work into public accusation. My professional neutrality was gone. Returning to my old routine would no longer be possible, even if the complaint disappeared tomorrow. Adrian read the filing number over my shoulder without moving closer. You just prevented demolition permits from being issued for Service Corridor 4, he said. And prevented you from burying it privately. His gaze held mine. Yes. No anger. No wounded pride. Only recognition. My phone rang again. This time it was the probate director. He informed me that my suspension was now indefinite because I had released estate-related material without internal approval. I listened until he finished. Then I said, "Please put that in writing." After the call, Adrian removed his car keys from his pocket and set them on the table between us. "What is that?" I asked. "A correction." He turned his phone toward me. On the screen was a demolition request filed that morning for the sealed maintenance corridors beneath East Harbor. Authorized by Victor Hale. Scheduled for 48 hours from now. My preservation notice had stopped it. For the moment, Adrian picked up neither his keys nor his phone. "Service Corridor 4 is now protected by your name," he said. "Which means Victor knows exactly who stands between him and whatever is still inside it." Adrian's demolition request stayed lit on the phone between us. Victor had filed it that morning. Before my preservation notice. Before my suspension. Before Adrian claimed he needed time to verify anything. "You knew the corridors were scheduled for demolition," I said. "I learned an hour ago." "That isn't what I asked." His face changed by almost nothing. That was answer enough. I picked up the phone and scrolled through the request. Vale Maritime Risk appeared as the property administrator. Adrian's digital approval sat beneath Victor's authorization. Approved 3 weeks earlier. The brass clock above us remained frozen at 11:40. "You signed this." "It was part of a facilities package. You authorized the destruction of the place where my father hid evidence." "I didn't know that then." "But you knew when you handed me this phone." "Yes." The word was quiet. Clean. Worse than an excuse. I set the phone down carefully. My father used to do that when something frightened him. Move slowly, as if sudden motion might attract consequences. I hated recognizing the habit in myself. "Why didn't you tell me immediately?" "Because your preservation filing stopped the demolition. That made the concealment convenient. It didn't make it honest." Adrian looked toward the records room. If I had challenged the approval before the hold was active, Victor would have known we were tracing Service Corridor 4. "So you let me file publicly while withholding the fact that your name was already attached. I let you decide without directing you. You controlled what I knew before I decided." The distinction landed between us. He did not argue. That silence changed the meaning of everything he had done well. The unedited reports he promised. The written terms. The apartment he offered and withdrew when I refused. His claim that information would remain under my control. He had respected my boundary only after deciding which facts reached it. My phone vibrated with an automated notice from the preservation office. The hold required an on-site inspection within 24 hours, or it could be challenged and dissolved. Staying meant entering a sealed corridor tied to my father's fear with a man who had just proven he could ration truth. Separating meant losing access to the terminal systems, the insurance records, and the one person powerful enough to delay Victor without announcing it. Adrian read the notice over my shoulder. "The mechanical archive lift requires 2 control stations," he said. "One inside the service level. One in the operations booth." "You already knew that?" "Yes. What else?" His jaw tightened. I waited. Finally, he opened a secure file on his phone and placed it before me. A list of companies filled the screen. Shipping firms. Warehouses. Family businesses. Several were marked with the same surname. Marlowe. "What is this?" After my father died, Victor identified the Marlowe organization as responsible. The rows continued below the screen. Canceled insurance. Frozen contracts. Revoked access. Businesses forced to close. Every action carried Adrian's authorization. I looked up. "You did this." "I believe they killed him." "That explains the decision. It doesn't erase it." "No." "How many innocent people lost their livelihoods?" "I don't know yet." Yet. The word exposed the real failure. He had begun investigating Victor, but he had not begun counting the people his own choices had harmed. The ring in my evidence case suddenly felt heavier. I had thought its groove marked Adrian's loss. Now it also belonged to everyone punished because he needed certainty more than proof. When were you going to tell me? After we recovered the dispatch cylinder. After you had evidence that made you look deceived instead of responsible. His right hand closed around the scar. This time I did not mistake it for pain alone. It was control. I was going to give you the full record, he said. When you decided I was ready to interpret it. He had no answer that could repair that. I opened our evidence agreement, drew a line through the clause granting Vail joint access, and initialed the change. The inspection still happens, I said. But the evidence goes directly to the independent custodian. You operate the external controls. You do not enter the corridor with me. You do not receive a private copy first. That leaves you exposed inside. It leaves me separated from your judgment. A long moment passed. Then Adrian signed beneath my amendment. He accepted the cost without asking forgiveness. I gathered the ring, Daniel's log, and the stopped clock photograph. At the terminal doors I looked back once. Adrian remained beneath the frozen clock, his open phone showing the names of families he had never bothered to count. Tomorrow I would enter Service Corridor 4 with his help, but I would no longer enter it trusting him. The next morning, Adrian stood behind the glass wall of the operations booth, while I entered Service Corridor 4 alone. He had followed every condition I set. No private guards inside. No hidden cameras added overnight. No attempt to replace the city observer assigned to my preservation filing. That obedience should have made the corridor feel safer. It did not. The air smelled of old tile, metal dust, and the sharp mineral trace I recognized from the blue residue inside the ring. My flashlight moved across electrical panels stamped with dates from 14 years earlier. Adrian's voice came through the wall speaker. Control station ready. I did not answer immediately. He waited. That was new. I reached the mechanical archive lift at the end of the corridor. Its two brass switches had to be turned within 5 seconds of each other. On my count, I said. You lead. I placed one hand on the interior switch. 3, 2, 1. Metal groaned beneath the floor. Somewhere above me, Adrian completed his part. The wall opened by 3 inches, stopped, then shuttered wider. Inside was a narrow steel drawer. One object rested there. A black dispatch cylinder labeled with the date Adrian's father died. I photographed it before touching it. Then I sealed it inside a numbered evidence sleeve and showed the city observer every surface through the glass. Adrian did not ask me to bring it closer. He only said, "You found it." Not we. You. The distinction hurt more than I expected. By noon, the cylinder sat inside the independent custodian's restoration room. Adrian remained in the public waiting area because I had denied Vail private access. He accepted that too. The technician recovered less than 2 minutes of damaged audio. Most of it was static. Then a man's voice emerged. Low. Urgent. Daniel, listen to me. Keep your hand open. A burst of distortion swallowed the rest. I stopped breathing. Adrian stood beyond the glass, unable to hear. His scarred hand rested flat against his knee. For years, he had believed those words were about losing the ring, about failing to hold on to the last symbol his father gave him. But Daniel's name came first. His father had been speaking to mine. The technician isolated another fragment. Metal struck tile. Someone shouted from farther away. Then my father's voice, younger than I remembered, said, "I can keep it safe." The recording ended. I stared at the sealed ring beside the playback machine. Its groove no longer looked like damage caused by Adrian's failure. It looked deliberate. My father had not simply found it. He had been trusted with it. That truth should have brought relief. Instead, it took away the last simple version of him I had left. Daniel had known more than he told me. He had built our life around silence while carrying another family's final words. The technician asked whether I wanted Adrian admitted. I looked through the glass. He had spent the morning obeying boundaries he once would have considered obstacles. He had also spent years destroying lives because certainty felt safer than doubt. Both things were true. Play it for him, I said. But give him no copy. Adrian entered without his phone. He listened once. When his father said Daniel's name, Adrian's face lost every trace of command. He did not look at me. "I blamed my hand," he said. I understood then that his coldness had not begun with distrust. It had begun with shame. That did not absolve him. It made the damage sadder. After the playback, he placed a signed document on the table. It transferred every retaliation record involving the Marlows to the independent custodian. No conditions, he said. What does this cost you? Whatever the records prove. He left before I answered. No request for forgiveness. No promise that sacrifice would make him good. Only absence. That evening the custodian called. A second audio layer had been recovered beneath the static. One voice gave an order to redirect Adrian's father through East Harbor at 11:40. The speaker had not yet been identified, but the original dispatch authorization carried a handwritten code. I called Adrian before I could reconsider. When he answered, I said, "Tomorrow, we stop protecting either of our fathers from the truth." By 8 the next morning, the ring, Daniel's maintenance log, the stop clock photograph, and the restored dispatch audio were arranged beneath white evidence lamps. Adrian stood across from me in the custodian's review room. No guards. No attorneys. No Victor. Only the truth we had both delayed in different ways. The technician played the recovered layer again. Static. Then Victor's voice, younger but unmistakable. Move Vale through East Harbor. Kill the power at 11:40. A second voice answered with Daniel's maintenance code. My father had not caused the blackout. He had been ordered to document it after the system failed. The timestamp on his log matched the frozen clock. The blue sealant inside the ring matched service corridor 4. Victor's vehicle entered 3 minutes before the outage. The official emergency call began 1 minute after power returned. Each clue locked into the next. The roadside attack had never started at the roadside. It had been moved there. I turned to Adrian. Victor redirected your father into the terminal. His face stayed still, but his scarred hand opened against the table. The technician advanced the final restored section. Adrian's father spoke through distortion. Daniel, listen to me. Keep your hand open. Don't become a fist for them. Metal scraped. Then my father said, I can keep it safe. The recording ended. I looked at the ring. For 14 years, Adrian had believed the groove marked the moment he failed to hold it. But the cut ran too straight. Too deep. Daniel had wedged it into the electrical grate on purpose. He had hidden the proof before Victor's people could search him. My father's silence had not been empty cowardice. In the margin of his maintenance log, beneath a line I had treated as an equipment reference, he had written my childhood bus route. Victor had shown him he knew where I would be. That was why Daniel moved us. Why he paid cash. Why he destroyed addresses and never explained. He had protected me badly. Fearfully. But not meaninglessly. Adrian lowered his head. Victor gave me the Marlowe name 2 days later, he said. I accepted it because I needed someone to blame. No defense followed. I opened the retaliation archive he had transferred yesterday. His signatures were everywhere. The hidden truth had 2 parts. Victor had built the lie. Adrian had built consequences on top of it. What happens if this becomes public? I asked. I lose control of Vale Maritime. And the legitimate companies? They could collapse with the rest unless ownership changes first. He slid 2 signed documents across the table. One transferred management of the port security and insurance businesses to an independent board. The other created a restitution trust for the Marlowe families and every business harmed by his orders. Both signatures were dated before our meeting. You already decided, I said. I decided before I knew whether you would call me again. That mattered. Not enough to repair us. Enough to make the sacrifice real. I placed Daniel's original log beside the documents. My father does not become a hero because he was afraid. No. And you do not become innocent because Victor lied. No, the agreement between us had never felt more painful. Or more honest. The technician asked whether we wanted the evidence sealed for private arbitration. I looked at Adrian. He did not answer for me. Prepare it for public release, I said. Adrian took off the Vale signet pin from his lapel and placed it beside the ring. Convene the leadership hearing at East Harbor, he said. Invite an independent legal observer. Release everything if I interfere. The final price was no longer Victor's exposure. It was Adrian surrendering the power that had allowed the lie to survive. I kept custody of the ring. He kept nothing. As we left the review room, Victor called Adrian. Adrian looked at the screen, then handed the phone to me. For the first time, the choice of whether to answer belonged entirely to my hand. Victor called again before we reached the hearing room. The phone remained in my hand. For 14 years, powerful men had decided which truths survived long enough to matter. My father had hidden one. Adrian had delayed another. Victor had built an empire around both. I answered. Evelyn. Victor sounded calm. You still have time to stop this. I'm listening. Release the recording and Adrian loses everything. Hundreds of people who had nothing to do with that night lose stability with him. I looked through the glass into the restored arbitration hall. Employees, legal observers, and city officials were already taking their seats. Adrian stood alone beside the long walnut table. He did not look toward me. You're asking me to choose silence, I said. I'm asking you to choose the living over the dead. I ended the call. No speech. No argument. Just a choice. Inside the hall, I walked directly to the independent legal observer and handed over the sealed evidence case. The original ring, I said. Daniel Mercer's maintenance log. The authenticated dispatch recording. Chain of custody is complete. She verified each seal before placing everything beside the hearing record. Nothing belonged to Adrian anymore. That was the point. When the proceedings began, Victor spoke first. He acknowledged procedural mistakes, questioned damaged recordings, and suggested that history should not be rewritten from incomplete evidence. He never looked at me. He looked only at Adrian. You still have time, he said quietly. Adrian reached into his jacket. For a heartbeat, every eye followed the movement. He removed only the veil signet pin from his lapel. Then he placed it beside the ring. I don't. He nodded toward the observer. Play the recording. Victor closed his eyes. The room filled with static. Then his younger voice. Move veil through East Harbor. Kill the power at 11:40. No one interrupted it. When the recording ended, Adrian remained standing. I accepted a lie because it gave me someone to blame, he said. Then I signed decisions that harmed innocent people. Those signatures are mine. He slid the restitution trust and independent management documents across the table. They become effective immediately. No one applauded. No one defended him. That silence carried more weight than any verdict. The observer accepted the documents, confirmed the evidence package, and announced that certified copies would be released simultaneously to investigators, affected businesses, and every family named in the restitution filings. Nothing could be recalled. Nothing could quietly disappear. Victor said nothing else. He simply lowered his eyes as the hearing continued without him. When it ended, Adrian stopped several feet away from me, far enough that leaving remained easy. The ring belongs to the archive now, he said. Yes. And your choice belongs to you. He turned to go. Adrian. He looked back. My father kept his promise. I placed the ring into the archive case myself and locked it. And today, I said, you kept yours. He smiled only once. Small. Uncertain. Real. Weeks later, I unlocked the East Harbor Restitution Archive for its first visitors. The ring rested beneath glass, no longer a symbol of power, but of truth preserved because ordinary people finally refused to let fear decide what survived. Some hands close around power. The stronger ones learn when to let it go.